I am not super excited about making my projects and my project page and all of the modals responsive. So I'm going to keep procrastinating and I'm going to work on the account details page next. So I'm going to go to my profile page because that is where I keep it. And I am going to take a look. So I always first just take a look at my inspector and I kind of play around and see where I find an issue. So you can see I already find an issue when I start going. I mean, we're only at 752 and there's already an issue. Okay? So that's problematic. I don't love that. And so I think that's going to be my first plan of attack. I think what I want to do is when it gets too small, I want to take my avatar and I want to move it up. Right now, I don't have adding a photo and I'm not really sure when I'm going to add it either. So while I would typically just move it up as my screen shrinks, I think I'm actually going to just hide it when I get to a certain level. Okay? So let's take a look at where that certain level is. All right, so 1,100 looks good still. See, even there. All right, so I don't even think that's, okay, so at 1,020 is where my email starts to look a little bit bad. Okay. And that is a pretty big screen size already. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy my media query that I like to use. I'm going to import. All right, and then I'm going to say, let's take a look, 1,120. 1,120. All right. Now I'm going to, let me close some of these. All right. Oh, you know what? I actually am going to want to go into the user detail row. But let's just try first to see what happens if we hide our avatar. No, let's do flex direction. Okay? I'm all over the place. It's all right. We'll get there. So if the screen is larger than 1,120, then we're going to do column. Otherwise, nope. Otherwise, we're going to do column. We want to do row if it's large enough, and otherwise we want to do column. All right. So now if I go down 1 pixel, it should change to column, which, yay. All right. So then this needs to be centered if that is true. So let's do, first let me do border is equal to 1 pixel, see where it is, okay? So then let's say justify content center, perfect. So now let's take the border off. All right, let's make this a little bit bigger, see if that messed up anything else, and it doesn't look like it messed up anything else. All right, so now that looks good. Okay, so then we want to continue shrinking and see the next time where it becomes an issue, which is, I think, all right, so I'm gonna say, let's just say 825, okay? So I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna add it here. So if our screen is larger than 825 pixels, we want this to look how it looks. Otherwise, we want to edit. All right. So it actually looks like we are going to want to move this to our user details row component. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to import my media query and let me go ahead and close my functions that I'm not using. And let's take a look at what the issue is. All right, so we have our text with our fields. Okay, we have our input, that's if we're updating it. And then we have our text, and otherwise if we're not updating it. And then we have our icon. Okay, so let's look at the box that's containing it. Okay, so actually I'm like moving my media query all over, but I think what we want to do is we want to allow this width to get bigger as the screen gets smaller. So moving my media query one more time, hopefully, but let's move it back. Because I think what we want to do then here is we want to say that if the screen size is larger than 825, we can keep to that width of 60%. Otherwise, let's go to 90%. All right, so now when we go down a pixel, we have more space. That looks great. Then we come in and we're good for a while. We're good up to, looks like 550 is going to be our next point where things start to get a little bit messed up. All right, so now we need to figure out what we want to do at that point. All right, so the way we have it in the user details row, is that the field is taking up as much room as possible, and then that's coming in. I'm kind of curious if we can change the flex direction at a certain point. So I'm just going to play around with that, and I'm going to say flex direction column and see what happens. I don't necessarily love that, but I feel like we could be pretty close to something. Okay, so I don't want the whole thing to be a column, but what if I just had the name come up on top? Or what if I hide the field? Because it's pretty clear that this is my name, email, username, and password. So what if I made it that this text here disappeared when the screen is too small? I feel like that could work. Okay, so let me give that a try. All right, so we're gonna say 550 is our break point. So let's add 550 to here. And then we're going to say if we have a screen size larger than 550, we'll show this text. Otherwise, we will show nothing. All right, so let's then get smaller. All right, and I think that's pretty perfect. That looks good. I can't promise, because here we're gonna have the issue with if we get too small. So like, for example, on the iPhone SE, that looks good, okay? But if we go to our smallest one, which is the Galaxy Fold, that starts to look a little bit bad. So I think we might even need to shrink things a little bit more. So I'm going to go with is larger than 300. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make the font size a little bit smaller when we have a screen size that's too small. Okay? So I'm going to do that for the text here. So I'm going to say font size, we're going to say is larger than 3000. Let's go look at our layer style and our theme to see if we define font size. No, we just defined the color. So I wonder if we can find it here. All right, I think I'm gonna just have to play around with it to get it. All right, so if the font size is, so let's do 14 pixels or 12 pixels. Okay, so 14 seems too small. Well, no, that's 12. Okay, so let's go ahead and, all right, so that's definitely too small. So let's try 16. Okay, so 16 looks like what's normal. Let's do 14 then for that. So then let's go ahead and shrink it. But now that works. So perfect. I am pleased with that. All right, let's also do the account details portion up here. Actually, I'm not going to worry about it. I think it looks good though. Okay, so let's go and look at it with the galaxy. And that looks good. I think these buttons, I think I'm going to want to stack them if we get too small. So let's go back to our profile and let's take a look at when things get too small. I mean, let's see what we're looking at up here. I think about, let's say just 400 just to have a nice round number. All right, so we'll be here and we're going to say flex direction. We're to say is larger than 400. We will do row, otherwise we will do column. All right, that looks pretty good. And then I want to do a margin around a margin horizontally, and I'm going to say 2. All right, let's see how that looks once we get farther out. That looks fine. Okay, that looks good. So now we have the modal that will open and close to edit our account details. So let's take a look at that too. Oh, well, I forgot we don't have a modal, but I do think we should style this because it's a little bit unclear what is editable. So I am going to want to go back to my input, which is on user detail row. And I think I want to do variant is going to be filled. So now let me try that. That looks much better. And I think we also want to have layer style is going to be text. Perfect to make it the purple color. So let's go look at it as if we're on an iPhone. We want to edit. That looks good. We want to edit. That looks good. That looks good. All right. Perfect. So that is going to be our work on making the account details page responsive. And next, we have to deal with this jumble of a mess. We will move on to our projects page. I will see you in the next video.